Yes. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, good evening, good evening. I'm going to turn up my volume so I can hear myself really nicely in the headphones. Oh, my goodness. It is yet another Tuesday night. Here we are, the Painfully Honest Tech Live podcast thing. I don't even know what I'm calling it anymore. I'm here. It's painfully honest. That's all I know. Like to say first, right off the bat, as we get going, thank you very much to our sponsor, Restream. Restream is making it possible for me to feed my family and to be here on this live stream with you right now. So Restream, if you're not familiar, you can stream to like 30 different, 40 different platforms, all kinds of different platforms, all at the same time. Very reasonable price. And if you use my link in the description, you get some money off. I got to admit, I've really been enjoying the Restream. I like being able to drop all this media in here and stuff like that, and be a little bit more professional than I used to be. So you know how it is. But anyway, here I am. If you're interested in the live streaming, I do suggest Restreaming's got a free option. Just try it out. You can stream from like OBS or other type things like that up to Restream and then go from there. It's all good. Anyway, oh, man, what a day. What a week. I tell you what, yeah. So it's March 23rd. How'd you guys like that Apple event? I'm just kidding. There was not an Apple event. We all know that. If you guys have not gone on over, well, don't do it now. Don't do it now. But I did a little premiere of the of my new Can You Trust. I'm bringing back Can You Trust. I don't care if nobody watches it. I don't care if 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people, whatever. I don't care who watches it. I'm going to bring back the Can You Trust, because Can You Trust, it's sometimes somebody's just got to ask the question, right? Right. So can you trust the one, the only John Prosser, the Apple Whisperer? If you're not familiar with John, you should go check him out. John is, he's been around for a long time. He's been doing front page tech for a long time, but in the past year or so, he has become a preeminent Apple leaker. However you might feel about leakers, John has been, getting some good info out there. And he said there was going to be an event. He said there was going to be an event today, right? The info was out there. There was going to be a March 23rd Apple event, and they were going to show us AirTags. Just the fact that they were supposed to show us AirTags should have been a clue, because we're never, ever going to see AirTags. But it turns out that there was no event, and it seems like maybe Apple was trolling a little bit or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what was happening, because a few leakers got this information, and then it was supposed to happen in April now. So can you trust John Prosser? Can you trust leakers in general? What does it mean to trust someone whose information may or may not be I mean, there's no way to know. No matter how good your sources are, if you're a leaker, I mean, he's got a 78% correctness rate. And I would imagine that's pretty good. He's number 7 among Apple leakers, according to Apple Track. If you're not familiar with Apple Track, you should go check it out. Oh, Apple Track, they rank by correctness all of the different prognosticators of Apple stuff. So anyway, can you trust? It's out there. It's bigger. It's better. It's better than ever. And my headphones are beeping again. I don't know why, but anyway, geez, what else should we talk about? Man, whew, I when you get really busy and you're like moving 1,000 miles an hour, and then when you stop, you're like, oh, I have a headache. Well, that's where I am right now. So clearly, you're right. Companies can change their mind at the last minute. But a lot of times, I mean, these events are planned months in advance. And there's so many things logistically. I guess it's probably different now that they're not being attended by actual people and all that kind of stuff. But there's so many things logistically that have to go into getting the stuff ready to go, and the presentation and all that kind of thing. So Yeah, I this came right at the same time that Apple took that dude, that dude that had been leaking stuff to somebody else, to court. So, I have a feeling that Apple is ramping up their leaking policies, and yeah, we're gonna see. Um, but to John's credit, um, he said back a few weeks ago that if there was not an event on the on the 23rd of March, he would shave his eyebrows off. And lo and behold, John Prosser went on Front Page Tech today and shaved his eyebrows off. So that was fun to see. That was fun to see, and I was glad to see him do it because when you're wrong about something, and it takes a lot to sort of sort of own up to it. And so I really enjoyed the fact that John was able to was able to um, you know be be a man about it and shave off his eyebrows, which is weird. But I agree with Genosis that perhaps next time we might have to wax. Yeah, wax would be fun. Wax would definitely be fun. And like his fiance could like rip the wax off of his face. Or yeah, this is even better. Don't wax the eyebrows. Wax the nose hairs. Have you guys seen that? Have you guys seen when people wax their nose hairs? They get like, it looks like Q-tips and they get hot wax and they stick it up in there and they let it dry and then they just rip it out. And oh my God, that's going to open up the sinuses for you. Woo! Yeah, I got to admit, yeah, you got to search that on YouTube. Check it out because it's something. It's something, for us older dudes, you gotta take care of that nose hair, and the ear hair as well. Uh, I was watching a documentary the other night, and it's so funny because lighting and photography and all that stuff is its own little art form. And whoever filmed this documentary didn't really, I don't think they really knew what they were doing, which is fine, whatever. I think it was like a student project or something like that. Anyway, you always want to light from behind. Like I have a light up here that's shining down on me so that I get a little bit of like light on my shoulders, and so I'm separated somewhat from the background. Well, they had put that light behind this guy, and he had his ears kind of stuck out, and all it did was light up his like ear hair around the edges of his ears. Whew. It was hard to look at. It was really hard to look at. One guy they made look like he was actually dead. So yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy. I do want to go back here and say thank you to Jorge for the super sticker, a peach. He sent me a peach super sticker. Jorge, yes, I thank you for the testing 123 of the super chat. Super chats are open. I really appreciate super chats. If you have questions that you really want answered and all that kind of stuff, then super chats are probably the best way to go. Don't feel any pressure to super chat. Memberships are open as well. Get a membership for as little as $2. And the people who are members of the Painfully Honest Tech Nation, they actually hate that. I hate it when people call it like something nation. Because I think it's because of the Red Sox, and I don't like the Red Sox. But anyway, if you remember the Painfully Honest Tech Wizard Squad, you would have had a half an hour early access to the video that I put out today. It would have been longer if I had been finished with the video before that. But I got to admit, like I've been thinking about when should I do the Can You Trust thing again, and I just kind of was like, oh, when should I do it? I've been back and forth. I've talked about it here on the live streams. And finally today, I was watching the Front Page Tech thing, and I was like, this is perfect. This is perfect because yeah, it's a good question. I think we should be talking about this, the leaking of all that, stuff. Oh man, Tech for your needs. Don't. Okay, if you live in Boston, then you can be a Red Sox fan, I guess. But as somebody who lived in New York, I mean, I've been a Yankees fan my whole life, like because the Yankees were good in the late '70s, and then they were good in the early to mid '90s. So here I am. Here I am. Been a Red Sox, been a Yankees fan for a long time, and the funny thing is, Jermaine, good to see you. The funny thing is, I went to a day-night doubleheader. I went to the night game, and it was Yankees Red Sox. And before game two even started, there were like just huge brawls in the huge brawls in the stands. They had to clear everything out. It was fun. It was fun. So, Dalton came for Apple news. What kind of Apple news might you want to hear, Dalton? Well, let's talk about this guy here. Yeah, here we go. Apple fined $2 million, or what is it? It's something like 10 billion something or other. It's 10.55 million. I don't know what the currency of Brazil is. Can anybody enlighten me? Anyway, so about $2 million US they've been fined for removing the power adapter from the iPhone boxes. And the Procon SP told Apple about the alleged violation in December. Apple responded by reiterating its environmental angle, which is bullshit. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not in the copy there, arguing that it would reduce CO2 emissions and rare earth mining. It noted that many customers already had spare chargers. The reality. Okay, yes. Thank you, Hugo. I knew it was something like that. But anyway, this whole eco thing. Now, it may very well have an ecological byproduct, but there is no way in hell that Apple said, let's be ecologically friendly and take the charger out of the box. If it's not making them money, then they're not gonna do it, right? That's just how it is. So this is making smaller boxes, which probably cost them less to make. And I don't know. The thing about this people have other chargers argument would be fine if if Apple hadn't put a USB-C to Lightning cable in the box of the iPhone. Nobody, I mean, nobody really, if you're buying if you're an iPhone person and you didn't buy last year's iPhone, then you don't have an Apple USB-C charger. They could be ecologically friendly if they used a USB-C port. That is correct. That is very correct, Don. We all know that Apple makes a lot of money from licensing the MFI, the MiFi, the MiFi. We all know they make a lot of money licensing that little port, right? So I looked up one time how much it was, and I'm sure it's different now, but they make a lot of money off of Lightning stuff. And here's what I think is going to happen. And they're probably going to get sued or fined by Brazil another 2 million reales, because the iPhone 13. Now, I don't really follow the leaks. I don't know what's going on with the iPhone 13. I don't know if it's not the iPhone 13, it's going to be the iPhone 14, where they get rid of the charging port altogether. MagSafe is all about getting rid of the charging port. It's not for accessories. It's not just a cool way to charge your phone, blah, 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 whatever. MagSafe is all about the portless iPhone. Now, I remember a couple of years ago, Talos of Tech was all high on the portless iPhone hog. He went for a whole year without using a port on his iPhone to prove that it could be done. And that was a couple of years ago, so it wasn't as easy to do as it is now. But I realized that charging wirelessly, charging through MagSafe, whatever, those things are not as efficient in terms of speed as other stuff is. However, I I really I don't know. I rarely plug in any of my phones. I've been plugging this phone in. This is the Samsung Galaxy S20 Ultra, and I've been plugging it in just because the wireless charger that I had is over here, and it seems to not work anymore. I bought a cheap wireless charger that had like 4 different charging spots, and only the Apple Watch spot seems to work anymore. So I plugged this in. I need to get some new wireless chargers. So yeah, you know how it is. You know how it is. Is Brazil a big enough market for them to care? Is there a big enough market for them to care? Because it's they the US market is probably, I would imagine, their biggest market, and they did it here and nobody complained, and no watchdog group came after them. No federal agency said, "Hey, you can't do that." So I doubt that they care, and I doubt they care about $2 million, nor do they care about 10.55 million reales. They don't care about any of it because they're making money hand over fist. I mean, they probably saved that in the first. I don't know. I have no concept of like Apple's financials at all. I have no concept of whatsoever. But they probably save that money every day. um, See, I mean, that's the question, Denny. Is it low? I don't know. I don't know. Is it low? It could be low. I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know what the Brazilian market represents. Like how many handsets does that represent? And yes, Don's right. The 2 million whatevers doesn't mean anything with a company that's got over $1 trillion valuation. So we pretty much have to expect, and by this point, I don't know why we wouldn't, that Apple is going to do what Apple is going to do, and I mean, everybody says, well, if you don't like it, then vote with your wallet, and that's the thing. Apple doesn't care if you vote with your wallet. Apple doesn't care. They don't care because they don't have to care, because plenty of other people are not voting with their wallets. They're just getting the next thing. They're taking whatever comes their way. They might complain about it for the first, couple of days, and then they're done, and they move on to the next thing. They asked Apple for a comment, and I guess they didn't get one. The fine is comparatively tiny and won't dent Apple's finances. However, Apple might not have much choice but to offer a concession if it wants to keep selling iPhones in Brazil. You know what would happen if they didn't sell iPhones in Brazil? The people in Brazil who wanted iPhones would get them from someplace else. Yeah. So it's not. I get frustrated, people. I get frustrated because yeah, Apple the company that's too big to fail, because this has happened in industry, over the years, in every industry for a long time. Back in the 70s into the early 80s, IBM, no one could imagine like a world where IBM was irrelevant to the computer industry, but it came, and it came at the expense of I guess it came from a tiny little chink in the armor, something that they couldn't see. BlackBerry is another great example. That's another great example. I mean, if you're not old enough to remember back in the the early 2000s, BlackBerry was the poop. It was the poop. And you suffered great great FOMO and much embarrassment if you didn't have a BlackBerry. And I could never afford a BlackBerry, so I didn't have one. I eventually got like some sort of Palm, some like a Palm Treo or something like that had sort of it was like a little candy bar. It was about this big, and it had a keyboard right here. Yeah, my wife did have a BlackBerry though, not one of the expensive ones, but one of the Blackberries. The thing about BlackBerry back in the day was nobody. If you were if you were a business person who had to use your phone, BlackBerry had the whole industry on lockdown because they had the best security. Their operating system was more secure than anything else, and so people used it, and companies trusted it, and it became the de facto business phone, right? So that's the thing about BlackBerry, Nokia, Palm. What is it that's going to be Apple's undoing? 2 years ago, when I was really upset with Apple and making videos about being upset with Apple, I would have thought that they were on their way down. But I have to say, at this point, with the M1 Max and the shrinking of the competition in the smartphone market, I have to say that I don't really see anything coming that is going to challenge Apple's supremacy. If you guys do, let me know out there, because I just don't see it. Yeah, BlackBerry and a ThinkPad, man. If you had a BlackBerry and a ThinkPad in like 2002, you were the king or the queen. But yeah, and I think that's true as well, bro. Bro, hey, bro. Yeah, I think that it's Apple's market share is much wider, and Apple is not like a one-trick pony either. BlackBerry did the phones, but they had to go with, well, I mean, the ThinkPad was IBM, right? So they had to go with, they had to go in partnership with somebody else. Apple's got the computers, Apple's got the phones, Apple's got the tablets, Apple's got the TVs thing. They got, well, the HomePod, rest in peace, pour one out for the HomePod. But they've diversified. They've created the ecosystem, and the ecosystem reigns supreme. I'm sorry, but I mean, when you get your ecosystem working, it is really hard not to. It is really hard not to like, just say it's too like the gravity well of the ecosystem is much too strong. You get pulled in, you never get back out. So Apple is not going to care about, I mean, the EU may sue. I haven't heard any news about the EU and their whole, Apple thing, but they could come out. Maybe if the whole EU came after Apple and find them and, put stipulations on whether or not they could sell their phones without some concessions in the European Union, that might be persuasive enough. But then again, I mean, iPhones are so much more expensive in Europe and in Australia and other places like that, and people still buy them. So I don't know. Maybe it's that we no longer understand the value of the currency that we don't carry in our pocket. Yeah, recycled Coke. That's a good one. Orbit. Although the RC Cola, I do believe the RC Cola predates Coca-Cola. There's just like a tiny little thing in my brain that says that that's true. I'm not sure, but I think. Royal Crown is the name. Royal Crown, not to be confused, Danny, with Crown Royal, because Crown Royal is a different thing entirely. However, if a 6-pack of RC Cola came in a purple velvet bag, I bet they'd sell better. I bet they'd sell more RC Cola. I actually didn't know that RC Cola still existed, so I'm glad to know that it does. Do they still make Tab? Do you guys remember Tab? It was like the first diet soda. It was terrible. It was like drinking straight aspartame. It was nasty. But I digress, as I want to do. The first smartphone, BlackBerry. I don't know, man. Because I was poor then, and I couldn't afford to have the fancy phones. So yeah. Let me see. This is a long comment, so I'm going to read it. Apple wouldn't care if the EU went after them. They already did over the lack of the USB-C port. Apple responded by packing a USB-C charging cable in, but not the charging brick. Yeah. Okay. So I hadn't put two and two together on that, but yes, that makes total sense to me. Apple is complying. Oh, thank you. See, ex-plumber. Thank you. 1905 versus 1886. Now, you guys all know that the original Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. Jolt Cola. Man, let me tell you, back in the old days when I was hanging out at the music clubs, all the straight edge kids drank Jolt Cola. And they sold it at the club. And when you're at a hardcore show and people are like throwing themselves around and people are getting kicked in the head and there's combat boots and all kinds of stuff like that, you don't want to like give them more caffeine. But they did. Yes, Gabe, it did really have cocaine in it. It did. And I think it did for a long time, because cocaine wasn't like bad for you until people said it was. Right? I mean, super chat from John. Is that John? That makes it so small. Joe. Sorry, Joe. I can't read it here and I can't read it there. So anyway, Joe says, I used to work at Verizon. My manager asked why I always wore my watch, a Rolex, over an Apple Watch. I told him smartwatches are for two people, those who need it and those who have no class. Thoughts? Interesting. I don't know, man. I mean, I guess it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? I think the Apple Watch is a useful device. I do think that it can be useful to anybody who wears it. But I've never had a Rolex, so I've never had the choice. I mean, I think the Apple Watch is probably the most expensive watch that I've ever owned. But then again, I never wore watches before. Never wanted to. It was weird to me when I started carrying a smartphone, and I didn't. It was like I didn't have. I didn't want to have a timepiece on me. That's how footloose and fancy free I was back in the day. But Joe, thank you for the $9.99 super chat. I do appreciate it. I will read anything that you super chat, just because I can't stop for long enough to see it. So if you want to troll me, you can do it that way. But yeah, it is an interesting thought. Let's see. Yeah. And so Coca-Cola did get its name from the coca plant that was one of its ingredients. It is true. You can check the internet. It'll tell you that it's true. I can't remember. Maybe somebody can look it up. I can't remember how long Coca-Cola continued to have cocaine in it until before people decided that it wasn't a good thing. That's a question. I mean, Well, no, that's a philosophical question. The whole philosophical question about like why are some things illegal and some things not illegal? I mean, I think the answer is always money. Like who gets the money is usually the reason that something's legal or illegal. Anyway, but I'm not going to go there because that's a whole other thing. Coca-Cola, according to Hugo, Coca-Cola removed the cocaine in 1903. So from 1886 to 1903, you were flying the friendly skies courtesy of Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola. Yeah. Wow. That's a long time. That's a long time. Oh, Dr. Pepper was 1880? Man, I tell you what, you haven't lived until you've been down in Texas. And is it in Lubbock? Is that where? No, Waco. That's right. That's right. Waco, I think it's the only place in the United States where they still make Dr. Pepper with pure cane sugar. And whoo, yeah. Well, that's and Alejandro's right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the Mexican sodas that you get have pure cane sugar. The reason that there are many geopolitical reasons why, but one of the reasons why they took the cane sugar out of sodas in the United States had a lot to do with the whole Cuban thing, right? And so that was one of our major suppliers of cane sugar. And so and also there's farm subsidy and all this other stuff, high fructose corn syrup, all that kind of stuff. But Mexican, if you go into your grocery store, usually in like one section, they'll have like the real Mexican food items and that kind of thing. And they'll have, maybe a couple of different kinds of Mexican sodas. I am a huge fan of Jarritos. Jarritos, the Tutti Frutti is so good. It really is. I mean, I found Jarritos when we were living in New York. They sold it in the stores, and we're like, "What is this Mexican soda pop that looks so bright and colorful and tasty?" And it was bright, colorful, and tasty. It really was. So if you haven't had a Jarrito, is that the singular Jarrito? Or should it be Jarritos? It's been a long time since I took Spanish. So anyway, yeah, cane sugar in your cola, what it is. Yeah, that's what you need. And X Plumber's got, man, yeah, that would be a good t-shirt. Cocaine free since 1903. And it even rhymes, right? But it gives new meaning to the old slogan from Coke, have a Coke and a smile, right? Now that's something else. Have a Coke and a smile. But that was after they took out the cocaine. But I bet when it had cocaine, you were smiling all the time. Sugar tax. You have a sugar tax in the UK. Drinks with sugar cost 20% more. What? I mean, did they count high fructose corn syrup as a sugar? Because that stuff kills you. Real sugar doesn't kill you like high fructose corn syrup. Okay, so we've got a question. We've got Yazan here. Is that the right way to pronounce it? I hope I'm pronouncing it right. $5 super chat. Thank you very much. LG might shutter its phone division after failing to find a buyer. I don't get the average consumer's logic that has resulted in this. Any thoughts? Yeah, we've talked about this a bunch of times, but it's a combination of things. For one thing, LG was terrible at marketing their phones. In the US or elsewhere. They were just terrible at doing it for reasons that I don't know or understand. They were terrible at that. They never even seemed to try. And then when the Nexus 4, we talked about this just a couple of weeks ago. I think it was the Nexus 4 and the LG V10 both had boot loop issues that would basically brick the phones, right? So they had been building a lot of goodwill. Like they were doing really well. They were up and coming with their flagships until that happened. After that happened, they started doing things like they'd offer a 2-year manufacturer warranty, which is really good compared to what everybody else offers, right? But yeah, so they'd offer a 2-year manufacturer warranty, which they still do. I think though the designs became a little blah. Um, the not a lot of people really liked their Android skin, although I don't think that would matter. I don't think that would matter as much to the average consumer. But when you look at a Samsung device and it's all slick looking, and then the LG looks kind of bland, maybe that has something to do with it. But I think at the end of the day, especially for people who use their phones for their work and the security stuff is really important to them, LG's track record of updating not just the operating system, but the security updates and everything like that, they just aren't as good at getting that done. And I've heard people say that they're like a year or more over like since they got their last security update, which to me is in this day and age just not cool at all. So as much as I love LG, and I do, I really like LG, the V series. I have the Wing right now. I think it's a cool idea. I think that LG has always had good ideas for phones. They just haven't figured out how to sell them. Like if they would have sold the V series as like, if you love music, you'll love the LG V series, right? Do you love music? Buy the LG V50, V60, whatever. Here's how it's better than everything else. But they never made that case. They never made that case to anyone. And so if you didn't know because you were someone in the know about what matters and that kind of stuff, then LG was not on your radar. And then, you go into a carrier store in the US and they've got 9 Samsung phones and every iPhone that you could possibly think of. And even now they've got like a right up front Google display, and maybe, you'll see a OnePlus phone or something like that. And LG usually has like 2 phones in the back that like don't even work anymore because they've been sitting on the shelf as a demo forever. So they just, I don't know if it was systematic for them. I don't know if I don't know what it is, but they're just not good at selling their phones, and it's unfortunate. We got a $9.99 super chat from Joe again. Saw a video saying that an Apple Watch is the most expensive watch you can buy due to the fact that it's doomed to fail and go out of style. Thoughts? Interesting. Doomed to fail in the sense that the battery will no longer work eventually. I've never done the research on what it would take to get the battery replaced in an Apple Watch. It'll go out of style. That I'm not sure of either, because like I look at the designs that Apple has done in terms of the iMac. Well, both iMac designs, really. Apple has been really good at making some timeless designs, right? So I look at the iMac that we have right now, and that iMac design has been the same since 2010. The only thing that's changed with it was, I think in 2012 they made the bezels super slim, and because it used to be like a 1-inch bezel with a CD drive in the side and all that. Yeah, they've been the same for like over 10 years at this point. And I still look at the iMac and say, that's a pretty good looking machine. I mean, yes, people complain about the chin, people complain about the bezels, all that kind of stuff. I think it's still a design that stands the test of time. I mean, I've got an old iMac back up there on the shelf, and that design from like the what is that, the late 90s? That design, there's either a person or an owl outside my house. I can't tell. Um, anyway, that designs to me, I look at that design and I say, well, I couldn't use the computer, but it's still a very smart looking design. Smart as in snazzy. Uh, so so I don't know. I also think that judging the Apple Watch on the criteria of a classic watch, as in like a piece of jewelry, is sort of it's a false dichotomy. You can't really judge an Apple Watch against a Rolex or a Tag Heuer or whatever. You can't, because they're not the same thing. They aren't designed to be the same thing, really. The Apple Watch is designed to be um, functional in a way that classic design watches are not. And so I just don't think that you can make that comparison as a one-to-one thing. So the Apple Watch, the Apple Watch may sort of fade in time, but I actually think, this is my theory, I think that the Apple Watch is going to be the form factor, maybe not exactly as we have it right now, but the watch is going to be the form factor that replaces our phones. Okay, when we go from slab of thing in our hand to, maybe holographic, maybe AR, maybe we've got contact lenses. I don't know what it's going to be. We got Apple Glass, whatever it is. That's going to be the next step, and it's got to have some sort of, like, at least in its earlier iterations, that has to have some sort of base station to work from, some sort of computing mechanism, right? Um, so I think that the watch is going to be the transitional device. I think the watch is the sort of chrysalis by which the next phase of smart communication will come from. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a specious argument for me to say that, you know the Apple Watch, it's just not the same thing. $5 super chat from Don. Do you think that faster chargers are worth the degradation? You may kill your battery in a couple of years or greatly reduce its capacity. That's a really good question, man. I mean, I know that a lot of smartphone manufacturers, I know Android and iOS, they all have stuff built into the operating system that, is very smart and trying to take care of battery life and take care of the health of the battery. So I think, although I'm not a battery engineer, I think that as long as we have software checks and balances in place, I don't know that the degradation from fast charging would be any greater or lesser than it would be normally. And I have to say that, like, when it comes to smartphones, um, I have an iPhone 7 Plus that still has like more than 90% of its battery capacity left. And now that phone doesn't get used every day. I bought it used, but still, I don't know if the degradation. I don't know what the degradation is for like a single device that somebody uses every day for 5 years. Somebody else might know that info, but I don't. Um, I saw that we have Andrew Edwards in the chat. Uh, and yeah, Andrew makes a similar point about the makes a similar point about the Apple Watch. I mean, even if we take other smartwatches into account, and there are some luxury brands that do have smartwatches at this point. Yeah, the Apple Watch is the most cared for in terms of upgrade, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I'm still on an Apple Watch Series 4, and I haven't really felt like I needed to upgrade. And and it's true, the Apple Watch gets better every year, and like it or not, the stuff that Apple has built into the Apple Watch in terms of all of these monitoring systems have helped people, have helped save people's lives, whether it's like sort of an early warning for a heart issue, or if you've fallen and hurt yourself. And there are just many, many ways, not even to take into account like the way that the Apple Watch encourages you to take better care of yourself. I would be really interested, and I think that it'll definitely happen if it's not happening right now, to see a study that looks into how the proliferation of the Apple Watch impacted overall health, and it would have to be within a certain substrata of, like, the American population. There are a lot of people that wear Apple Watches, and I would be really interested to see how the Apple Watches in that large group have impacted people's health. I mean, I don't know if you guys watch Greg's Gadgets, but you should. The first place that I caught up with Greg was he closed his rings on his Apple Watch like every day for a year, and he wanted to lose some weight, so like that was his plan. And Jonathan Morrison did a video with him. You should really check it out. In fact, you should check out Jonathan Morrison's most recent video as well, talking about how he's changing gears and the nature of his creative muse taking him places, because it's a really fantastic video. But Greg, I think he lost like 30 pounds by closing his rings every day. And of course, it wasn't just like he got into a regimen where he started walking, then he was running, and all that kind of stuff. But the Apple Watch is a tool, and it can be used as a tool in many different ways. So I'm high on the Apple Watch, just like I would be high on Coca-Cola in 1900, because of what it can do, and the potential it has, and what I think will be the really significant place that it has in the future of what our smart devices are. So I tend to look at it that way, right? OnePlus watch. Is there a OnePlus watch? I didn't see that in the in the information about the OnePlus 9 Pro, which we are going to talk about here in just a second. But yeah, so it's an interesting. It's and so Theron makes the point here that battery tech needs a revolutionary change. I think we know, or at least we've suspected, what that revolutionary change is going to be in terms of graphene battery tech. It just I don't know why it hasn't happened. I've been hearing about graphene battery tech for the past 4 or 5 years, and it hasn't really happened. So I don't really know, but it will happen. And when it does, I mean, when battery technology improves to the place where battery anxiety ceases to be an issue at all, everything will change. People who own electric, by 2050, I foresee that most of the vehicles made in the world will be electric only. It's just the way it's going. I know I know that companies have made benchmarks for themselves about moving in that direction. But once we get into a different battery technology than like the lithium type batteries, we will see like huge sea changes in our technology. Batteries are one of the huge elements in why our phones have to be this big, right? And so once battery technology becomes a lot smaller, it will be a much different thing. And we'll see. That's when, at least in concert with that, we will see like the iPad will become like a little sliver of something. like a piece of plastic sheeting. You remember those transparencies that you used to write on in school, or the teacher, I guess, would write on them? That's what the iPad will be one of these days. I watch a lot of watch a lot of TV shows. But so Franklin says all the cars in the UK will be electric in 2050. That's crazy. Now, here's a question. This is something that I've been wondering about. I just got my wife a new car, and it's a plug-in hybrid. BMW 330e. And the reason that we didn't get a Tesla is there's a Tesla supercharging station here in Iowa City. Here in Iowa City. There's another one in Cedar Rapids, which is 30 something minutes away, right? And then the next one is in Des Moines, and Des Moines is 2.5+ hours away. And so the infrastructure for the supercharging stuff just wasn't in place for us to feel comfortable. My wife travels a lot throughout the state, so we just we didn't feel comfortable buying an all electric car as much as I wanted to. So yeah, I'm curious, Franklin, maybe you can tell me this. Will internal combustion engine cars have to be retrofitted to be electric by 2050? Because there still will be internal combustion engines around for quite some time, right? So I'm curious. Well, we got a 1999 super chat from Joe. Thank you, Joe. Much appreciated, man. Joe says, I like the Apple Watch for the people who need it. I always laughed at my manager and said the day Apple makes a watch that can last 20 years and be in style and quality, then maybe I'll respect them as a watch brand. Yeah, but see, I see what you're saying. Totally see what you're saying. I just don't tend to I'm not a watch guy, but I don't tend to put the Apple Watch in the same category as in terms of fashion, in terms of build quality, in terms of any number of things, as like a classic piece of jewelry watch. But I see what you're saying. I mean, I know a lot of people feel that way. I know a lot of people are like wristwatch people, and it's important to them. I look at the Apple Watch more as a tool, than I look at it as a fashion statement. So that's kind of how I feel about it. Rolex Smart Chrono. We'll see. We'll see. I mean, like I said, I know that some people, some better known, higher quality watch brands have done some smart watches. I don't know how successful they've been, but Bob says no one better try to retrofit his 1941 Chrysler with battery packs. See, now this is starting to sound like a Rush song, right? But that's true. I don't know how they would ever get to the place where they would be able to replace, everything mandated for everyone. I mean, the UK, you have to take into account that the United Kingdom is like smaller than Texas. So it might be easier to put that kind of stuff into effect in the UK. However, in the United States, man, I don't know. It'll become like the Second Amendment in guns or something like that. I don't know. I hope not. I hope not. But so Franklin has a correction from his previous statement. All new cars sold have to be electric by 2050 in the UK. Gas vehicles will still be around, but will be phased out. See, that's the interesting thing. I mean, at what point will they officially be phased out? Because like Bob with his 1941 Chrysler, I mean, at least cars made before like the 80s that didn't have computers in them and stuff, those vehicles could potentially run forever if you know how to fix them and you can get the parts, right? Because it's a very simple machine. Now, once you get into computer aided this and you know, timing and all that kind of stuff, then you start talking about something that's a totally different thing. And yeah, it could be phased out. But like, if in 2075 Bob is still driving around in his 1941 Chrysler, will there be gas stations, or will there be like, you know, that thing where you put material in and out comes whatever you want it to be, like on Star Trek or something? I don't know. um, Alejandra says, it's not about retrofitting old vehicles. It could be easily done by introducing legislation that no longer registers vehicles from any years prior. Yeah. Yeah, but that would suck, man. You have to admit, that would suck. I mean, I grew up, my dad was a car guy. I grew up in car culture. I know that there will be plenty of people out there, you know, making their own gas in the woods and driving their vehicles around. You know, it's gonna be a difficult argument to get across. Don says, thank you for the $5 super chat, by the way. Apple has the market on watches if they would allow you to link it to an Android phone. Okay. I feel the same about iMessage if it were a paid Android app. Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know, because okay. Apple once tried to try, you know, when John Scully took over Apple from Steve Jobs, and he decided that he was going to let other companies make Apple computers and, you know, all that kind of stuff. It was a terrible failure. I think the one thing that works for Apple, the one reason Apple stuff works so well and it's become the thing that it has become, is because everything's so tightly integrated together. One of the reasons that Android has problems from time to time is because it's like Windows. Android as an operating system has to be able to be ported into so many different devices made by so many different companies, and then they tune it themselves for this, that, or the other thing. And it's just a different philosophy of how to disseminate your product. And so I think that Apple ultimately keeps something like the Apple Watch to themselves, because it it's, and some people complain about this. It's one of the only devices that, you know, can't necessarily be used on its own, at least right now. Yes, you can put a SIM card in there and you can make phone calls with it and all that kind of stuff. But I think the Apple Watch is one of those extra garnishes that Apple has that makes it worthwhile to join the Apple ecosystem. And I think it would be really difficult for them to port that experience over to the Android side. Same thing for iMessage. I mean, iMessage works because of the way it networks with other Apple devices. And the benefits of iMessage, over and above, you know, group chats and all that kind of stuff, the benefits of iMessage, you know, better media sharing, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know if they could have that. I don't know if they could have that experience on an Android device. I don't know if it's too baked in to the way that iOS works with everything else that's iOS, to the point where it could be ported over to Android. Can you trust PHT? Man, sometimes I don't even know myself. I don't even know myself. But no, I mean, I'd like to think so. I do my best. How's that? How's that? So OnePlus Watch. Okay, let's look at this OnePlus phone real quick. Okay, so we've got OnePlus phone. So it's the OnePlus 9 and the OnePlus 9 Pro, right? 8.7 says the CNET. They like the fact that it's beautiful and it's classy. Okay, it's subjective. Vibrant pin sharp display. Seems like it would have to have that. Masses of processing. What does that mean? I mean, coherent, typically large body of matter? No. I think they meant massive processing power. Proofreading, copy editing, editorial, just all by itself is a dead art form. Exceptionally fast charging. Okay, they don't like no expandable storage. I think everybody better get used to that. Like, now that Samsung has done it, and it's not gonna go away. I don't think anybody else is gonna do it anymore if Samsung's not gonna do it. Battery life could be better, okay, but then you've got exceptionally fast charging, so comes out a wash. Cameras don't hit the high watermark that other features do. Okay, now this is all coming from somebody who's, I don't know why she's holding a Galaxy Fold in that picture. But anyway, they've obviously had their hands on the phone. I have not had my hands on the phone. Two new phones that have also introduced the OnePlus Watch, which goes up for pre-order on April 14. Okay, we've seen LG watches, we've seen Samsung watches, we've seen, I think every major manufacturer of Android phones has made a watch. And they are not, well, Samsung still makes watches, but nobody cares. Nobody cares. There's not, to me, like, I don't dislike the gear, whatever they're calling them now. They're not gear watches anymore. I mean, there's something to be said for branding. I don't dislike them, but they don't add the same kind of value that an Apple Watch does for me. So I'm not going to pay. I'd pay $150 for a Samsung watch. I don't think I'd pay $150 for a OnePlus watch. I can guarantee you I wouldn't pay. I mean, I'd take one for free if they were giving it to me. But here's the problem that I see with this phone. The OnePlus 9 Pro, which I think is the only one currently available, like, that we know of in the United States, is over $1,000. And what do we know about $1,000 phones? $1,000 phones are, the $1,000 phones are at this point the privilege of brands like Apple and Samsung. Everybody else has to fight for the scraps in the sub $1,000 market. And I don't even know if Apple and Samsung will be able to keep that threshold, because as we've talked about before, smartphones have become commodities. OnePlus is slapping the Hasselblad name on the back of this. They're licensing the Hasselblad name. Okay. I don't know if the people from Hasselblad came in and like tuned their things or whatever. They licensed the Hasselblad name. I don't know much more about the camera. I haven't seen a single picture taken by the camera. But Hasselblad is valuable to OnePlus only because of the name, right? Same way that Samsung likes to leverage AKG with their headphones. I mean, nobody puts two and two together and says, oh, well, Samsung also owns AKG, so they could do whatever they want. But it's true, they do. Samsung owns AKG. So to me, like, $1,000 OnePlus phone is In the words of one of the great poets of the 20th century, Alanis Morissette, ironic. Don't you think? I mean, OnePlus was supposed to be the giant killer, and now they're like the giant sloppy seconds. I'm sure it's a fine phone. I'm sure it's going to be a fine phone. But I'll tell you what, I have no interest in owning one myself. I have no interest in anything. I mean, it doesn't really have a Hasselblad. Does Hasselblad make a sensor that is that small? Like what Hasselblad camera would have that on there? Motorola had a Hasselblad like Moto Mod back in the day. Hasselblad has licensed their name before. Maybe they have some intellectual property that's in there as well. I don't know. But it's not going to, it's lipstick on a pig. Okay. It's lipstick on a pig until I see photos that compete with the Pixel, the iPhone, Samsung, until I see pixels out of a OnePlus camera that are as versatile, that are as, like spot on good, not 9 times out of 10 as those cameras can be, then I don't care what name you put on it. I don't care what name you put on it. It is lipstick on a pig. Okay? OnePlus has lost their way. They can't, I mean, I don't assume they're selling very many of their Nord phones. We've talked about this. Nord, is it like, North in Norwegian or something? They're not selling those. They're not going to sell very many of these in the United States because if I'm spending $1,000, I'm going to buy a Samsung. If I'm spending $1,000, I'm going to buy an iPhone. $1,000 for a OnePlus phone is, I mean, that's terrible. Michael Pepper says, yeah, I'd love to sit down and talk about smartphone camera reviews with you sometime. If you'd be interested. Yeah, I'd love to. I mean, the thing is, and I think anybody who's watched the channel for a while knows that I'm not a big camera geek. There are people who do amazing jobs of covering smartphone cameras. Danny Winget, Michael, what's his name? Michael, yeah, that guy, Mr. Mobile. Yeah, that guy. There are people who do amazing coverage of smartphone cameras, and my litmus test for a smartphone camera is, can I open the camera and coax a decent image out of it without having to take the picture 10 times. Okay. And so, I mean, so one of the things that's always driven me back to the iPhone after trying a Samsung phone for a while is that the Samsung phone could never be as reliably good as the iPhone camera. But I've been taking pictures with the camera on this S21 Ultra, and it has been fantastic. I've just been really impressed. Some of the smart features of it, where it can tell what scenario you're taking a picture in, and then it tries to help you out. That's actually been useful as opposed to annoying. It's been a really good camera. And so, yeah, I'd be interested in now that I've taken a bunch of pictures with this, comparing some to the iPhone 12, 12 Pro, 12 Pro Max, whatever. So yeah, Michael, that might be a cool thing to do. If you buy an S21 Ultra on Amazon, it's cheaper than the OnePlus 9 Pro. Oh my. Wow. Now, Carl Pye is gone from OnePlus. I didn't follow the story enough to really know why, but the value proposition of OnePlus was 90% of the flagship phone for 50% of the price. Now, 90% of the flagship phone for 95% of the price is not a it's not a value proposition. There's no reason to buy a OnePlus phone in 2021 when it costs $1,000, especially when you know that you can take, if you're a Samsung person, you know you can take whatever Samsung phone you're using, whatever iPhone you might have be using or whatever, you can take it and you can trade in, and you can end up paying like 60% or less of what this is, right? 60% or less than what this OnePlus phone costs. And can you trade in a OnePlus phone for like 40-50% off? No, you cannot. No, you cannot. So OnePlus phones have to probably be worth like this. As soon as you turn this phone on and walk out of the store, this phone's worth $500. So why? I mean, just this is like a fool in his money phone. This is a fool in his money phone. I'm sorry, but it's OnePlus impressed me when they were able to do so much for so little, but now they do so little for so much that I can't see it. I can't see it. I can't. No. And the watch, maybe. I don't know why I'm looking at the CNET story. CNET sucks, but you know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying. CNET never. CNET's like everything else. They don't say anything. They don't. I mean, this is one of the most poorly written. I always insult these journalists because they write so poorly. But I mean, what do you expect? When nobody gets paid a decent wage to write anything anymore, you're not going to get good writers. Alan is absolutely right. OnePlus has been overrated for years, but it was somewhat more attractive when they were overrated for half the price. Am I right? I mean, when you can get a OnePlus phone for $500-$600 and it competes with the flagship that costs like $900 to $1,000, you can forgive a little bit of like blah. But when they want the same amount of money for a phone that's not nearly as good, not into it. Not into it. Pixel 4a has a better camera. No doubt. And I don't care if David Hasselhoff put his name on the back of this phone. It's not going to make the camera any better than the Pixel, right? Not going to do it. The only thing that they could put on the back of this phone that would give me confidence that this camera was going to take as good photos as a Pixel would be the word camera by Pixel. The words camera by Pixel would be the only thing that would convince me to get this phone for the camera. I don't care. And Hasselblad, as much as, if you know anything about photography, you know the name Hasselblad, but Hasselblad is not like, you're not going to walk into the local coffee shop and put down your OnePlus phone and people who don't know anything about cameras are going to be like, oh, Hasselblad. No. Like I say, you could put Hasselhoff on there. It would be equally as impressive to most people. So, yeah. I miss your old show with you just talking tech and we just watch. What am I doing, Tim? What am I doing? Hasselblad went to the moon in 1969. Nobody went to the moon in 1969, Bob. You know that as well as anyone. Oh man, what? I feel like it would be funny if I started just like, really strongly campaigning for one of these ridiculous things. Like if I just campaigned, like if I became a flat earth person and I was like, all my videos were about flat earth. Maybe that would Be fun. Yes, Ace, I hear you. I hear you. Okay, Anthony comes in. Anthony slips into the stream and drops this one. Apple phones are trash. They're overpriced and you can't even fix them. Apple charges a ton of money for parts that are cheap. That's why you buy Apple Care, bro. I I mean, I don't know how to respond to something like that because Apple phones are trash is just not a I mean, you can have an opinion, but I think that generally everybody would say Apple phones maybe have some issues with, right to repair, et cetera, et cetera. But the phones themselves stand the test of time, especially compared to Android phones. When an iPhone loses 20 to 25% of its value after 3 years of use, and this Samsung Galaxy S21 Ultra, I'd be lucky if I could get half of the sticker price for it right now if I sold it tomorrow. Right there, that tells you something about Apple phones. So I appreciate the effort. Everything's too expensive, Steve. I mean, and at this point, like it's hard to really single Apple out for being too expensive when we're looking over here at OnePlus selling $1,000 phone, right? It's really difficult to single out Apple as being too expensive now. I mean, are they too expensive? Yes, but at least they do offer phones that are like spec'd somewhat equally compared to their flagship phones for reasonable cost. And Franklin said, "Don't buy Apple Care." Now, I'm not one to ever buy the extended warranty. Okay, extended warranties have been proven to be somewhat of a scam. Now they give you peace of mind, which is, peace of mind is all in the eye of the beholder. The thing about it is, with Apple Care, I feel like you're getting enough added value that Apple Care makes sense. Now, like if I had paid the $150 or whatever that it would cost for my MacBook Pro over there to get Apple Care, when I dropped a speaker on it and put a big dent in the lid that put a little crack in the screen, I could have gotten it fixed for free. Now it costs $1,000 to get that fixed, not for free, right? So, I mean, with Apple Care, it's like, well, okay, so roll the cost of the thing into the. I don't know. I think Apple Care, as extended warranties go, Apple Care is one of the better options out there. You do get a lot for your money when it comes to Apple Care. Michael says, my parents got 4 to 5 years out of their iPhone 7 Plus, giving them to my nieces with 85% battery health. Yeah. You can buy phones renewed on Amazon that are a year old with 80%. And it says a lot. It is true. It is true. And I'm not interested in like in a dick measuring contest about, Android versus Apple. I mean, I'm using an Android phone right now. I've been using it since the day it came out. I'm enjoying this phone. I enjoy an iPhone. There is no point in like trying to figure out which one's better because neither one is. They both do things that people like, some better than others, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, to me, it doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't really make a difference what it is. Tim brings up this. So Apple has no competition, so they have no reason to drop their prices, which is why x86 hardware is cheap due to the so many vendors. Yet Apple fans pay an arm and a leg for the same hardware on a Mac. Not anymore, Tim. You were 100% right about 9 months ago. However, the M1 Macs are cheaper and perform better than their Windows counterparts. So the value proposition of a Mac has 100% changed. Yes, Apple has always been expensive, but when I can get an M1 MacBook Pro that I can run my entire business off of for $1,400, then that's something. When I can get a Mac Mini for $900 that I can run my whole business off of, that's like a different value proposition altogether than what was the case with Intel-based Macs beforehand. Intel-based Macs beforehand were crazy expensive, and people paid for it because that's what it cost, right? But now, I mean, ask anybody. Ask iJustine, who uses an M1 Mac and then compares it to her $80,000 Mac Pro and doesn't recognize that much of a difference between the two. Is the $80,000 Mac Pro going to be better by a long shot at a lot of stuff? Maybe. But for 95% of everything that a person does on a computer, these new Macs destroy everything. And until a similar sea change happens on the Intel side, Intel's making commercials starring Justin Long for a reason. And part of that reason is to obfuscate the fact that they are getting pantsed, pantsed, all over the place by AMD on one end, by Apple on the other, right? So the times, they are changing, yeah, except gaming, which is a different thing altogether. And again, it's like comparing a Rolex to an Apple Watch. I mean, they're both very nice, but they're not the same thing. See, here's the thing, Jonathan. He says, I wish Intel would quit hating and start working, do better Intel, do better processor, do better integration, just do better. I don't think Intel has just been like hanging out. I think Intel has probably been making, a boisterous effort toward getting to 5 nanometers, right? Or whatever it is they want to get to in order to compete. But I don't think they've been able to do it. Or at least they haven't been able to do it with a product that they can sell. So, I mean, I just think that Intel is, they might be in an IBM kind of position right now, where the competition just like blew past them and smacked them in the rear end on the way by, right? And Ace is right. I mean, AMD, when you want to talk about gaming, AMD is just going to walk up and say, like, as he puts in his comment here, hold my beer. Now, I know that AMD graphics processors are better than they used to be, but I'm still partial to my NVIDIAs. But Bob says his main computer is still running a Core 2 quad and 16 gigs of RAM. Still runs all my games. Yeah, of course. Back here, I don't know if you can see it. I've got a 2006 Mac Pro. 2006. Now, if my math serves me, that's 15 years old. 15 years old. My daughter was 2 when that thing was made. And I have finagled it up to run El Capitan. And I put 32 gigs of RAM in it the other day. I ordered I didn't have the right RAM because somebody had just, like, the person I bought it from had just shoved a bunch of 667 megahertz sticks in there. But now I got 32 gigs of RAM in there, and that thing is fast. Single core score, it smokes. But yeah, I mean, we've been trained in this day and age. We've been trained to believe that technology has an expiration date. And in a lot of cases it does. Like this running El Capitan cannot run a lot of the newest versions of the programs that I need to run. Okay? So audio stuff, et cetera, et cetera. Now I could run that machine. It's got FireWire. I could set up a recording studio like it was 2008. And I could just rock solid all the time. But one thing that Massimo Corelli, who's a guy who's a friend of the channel, he's been on these live streams a bunch. He helped me source the RAM, make sure he does IT. He's Italian, very nice guy. He helped me source the RAM, and he was like, well, you're not going to be able to run like the most recent creative stuff, but you could turn it into a boot camp machine. I'm like, oh, I could turn it into a boot camp machine. That could be fun. But then again, I mean, I've got PCs out the wazoo as well. So anyway, this has been exciting. A little feisty this evening. Must be because I'm drinking coffee out of this amazing Painfully Honest Tech mug, available for purchase down below the description here on this video. It's a very good mug. I got some new t-shirts coming. What is this bullcrap? Long time sub unsubbing, sue to you being an Apple sheep. What? Okay, somebody tell me one thing that I've said that has made me an Apple, that's Apple sheeply. What? I have talked about the benefits of PCs. I've talked about the benefits of Android phones. I've talked about the benefits of Apple. I've talked about the benefits of Macs, and I've talked about the benefits of Apple Watches and everything else. At no point have I said anything like Apple's just better. And I don't even know that I'm an Apple fanboy, because sometimes they really piss me off. And like the live stream I did last Friday and the video that I put out, I think that even though maybe Intel was being a little petty with the Justin Long thing, Apple kind of deserved to get that done to them. I enjoyed it. It was funny to me. John Mack got the Painfully Honest Tech mug for Christmas. Thank you, man. Appreciate it. Steven, thank you. Here's the thing. This is what people don't understand about Painfully Honest. Painfully Honest means when a company that I generally dislike, like Samsung, and I dislike them for many reasons that don't have a lot to do with their phones. And their phones have annoyed me recently, even though the Note 20 Ultra was my favorite phone, my number one phone of 2020. This S21 Ultra is the best phone that you can buy right now. It is the best phone that you can buy right now, and I have been thoroughly enjoying using it. And anybody who watches the channel regularly knows that I am long past the time that I would have gone back to an iPhone and put that thing to the side. But I really like this phone. Painfully Honest is about saying whatever needs to be said, in my opinion, in my estimation, right? It is my opinion for sure. But in my estimation, I'm saying what I feel like needs to be said about whatever it is. So being effusive about Apple doesn't necessarily mean that I'm totally in the tank for Apple. being uh, being being metered and sort of trying to be balanced about things doesn't make me an apple. So okay, look back at your iPhone XS Max video. Remember all the dislikes that you got, forgot the drama. I remember that people got mad at me because I bought the phone. And I guess I can understand why people would be mad at me for buying the phone. I mean, ultimately the problem is like I do tech commentary and I do I do tech reviews. And as a tech commentator at that time, I had plenty to say about my dissatisfaction with Apple as a company, where they were going and the products that they were putting out, and just the general gestalt of Apple, right? Um, but as a tech reviewer, it's also part of my job to get the phone and to review it, right? So when I get the phone and I review it and I say it's a pretty good phone, people people lost their mind because I got the phone in the first place. It was a very weird time. It was a very weird time because um, that was also the time when I went over 100,000 subs, et cetera, et cetera. So it was all very weird. It was all very weird. And yeah, I mean, I'm not going to make any excuses for it. I bought the phone. I used the phone. I liked the phone. I said it. I said I liked it. But that doesn't really have anything to do with the stuff that I had to say about Apple. And to my to my pleasure, in the years since then, and I'm in no way taking any credit whatsoever for this, but in the years since my dissatisfaction with Apple and the direction that they were going, at the time, they have turned the corner and started to come back around, and they're doing some things that I like with their products. The M1 Max are amazing. The iPhones are high quality. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. Taking the charger out of the box is a dick move. And I don't care what Apple says, one way or the other. It's a straight up dick move. And saying that it's eco-friendly is sort of like, you know, getting out an ice cream bowl, pooping in it, and telling us it's chocolate. It's not true. It's not true. I mean, it might be a byproduct, but it's not true. And in terms of right to repair and everything like that, they don't do they are they equitable in how they allow people to repair their own devices? No. But then again, like, you know, there are two ways to look at that philosophy. One being that it's a highly involved, delicate device, and maybe you want professionals working on it, or not. I don't know. I'm not defending myself. I'm just saying. I mean, man, the likes versus dislikes thing. Here's the end all be all of it. If you like or dislike a video that I put onto YouTube, it all counts as engagement. So YouTube sees that as like, oh, this guy's doing good. People are engaging with his video. They don't care if you don't like it. They don't care if you like it. They just care that you cared enough to engage with it one way or the other. If you watch 90% of it and then leave me a comment that says I hate it, awesome. If you watch 50% of it and say you love it, that's less awesome, because I need more watch time. So anyway, I don't know. I've talked myself into a circle. Steve Freeman in the house. As long as you spell my name right. Yes, there's no such thing as bad press, ladies and gentlemen. Make people mad, make people sad, make people happy, make people glad. It does not matter what you do. As long as you do it well, you will do just fine. What's Alex is asking? What about the updates crippling their old phones' performance and battery life? Well, they got sued for that, and there was a class action lawsuit that has been settled. However, I mean, again, this is what Apple does well. They can say, "Oh, well, we're trying to help those old phones stay relevant for a longer period of time by slowing them down." So that whatever. I don't think it's a huge conspiracy. Okay, I don't think it's a huge conspiracy. Like Apple's like, "Oh, we're going to slow down the phones so that people will go buy a new one." No, I don't think so, because we hear anecdotally all over the place, and we know how many old iPhones are still in people's hands, right? We know that iPhones live long and happy lives. So I don't know. Apple's made some mistakes. I'm not saying they haven't. Keyboard thing sucked. Touch disease sucked. Bendy iPhone 6s sucked, right? And you're holding it wrong, stupid. All of those things are true. But they've they still make good products. Lewis Ross, I haven't watched the Lewis Rossman video in quite a while. And sometimes, I mean, I know it's his job and stuff, but sometimes I just think he gets a little too upset. We've got a Jeremy here with the $5 super chat. Thank you so much, man. Always love catching PHT live stream. Keep doing what you're doing, Jason. It's working. Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I will keep doing what I'm doing. I need to drink more coffee when I do this because it's been so spicy tonight. Tonight has been spicy. I think I made some people mad. Sweatgate. Yes. AirPods Max, Sweatgate. Or let's call it condensation gate, or the condensation controversy. I don't know what I'm talking about. Oh, geez. 95 people. Welcome. Emilio, what's up with you? Many people are typing so fast. Sorry, Jeremiah. Apple got fined for taking the charger out of the box. According to Brazil was pissed, I guess. Moistgate. Every time I hear the word moist, I just, I feel like licking my palms. Moistgate. Oh, people. Well, I'm going to start to round it up because I've been up like working my tail off on videos all day. I got another video coming for you that was going to be released today, and then I decided to do a Can You Trust on Mr. John Prosser. So yeah, I've been busting my tailbone. I've been busting my tail feather. Shake a little tail feather. Boom, 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 boom. Maybe you need a little whiskey. You haven't been around here very often, have you? I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 10 years, my friend. 10 years. 10 years. You know why? I'm a drunk. So there you go. Yeah. With content like this, you're going to need an OnlyFans page. Man, I would love to have an OnlyFans page. I would, it's like, I think Rich from Review Tech USA should also have an OnlyFans page, and he should live stream only on OnlyFans with his shirt off, and people pay for him to take off his pants on OnlyFans. But yeah, I mean, what could I offer people on OnlyFans? I don't really know. There's not a lot. There's not a lot here that really would be enticing. I have not used the Surface headphones. I didn't use the ones. I didn't use the twos. I wanted to, But I just haven't picked them up yet, and hopefully I will. Hopefully I will. All right, we've got a super chat. From Dom again. Do you think a better camera and a bigger battery, maybe a better screen, will continue to drive phone prices higher long term? Is it a phase? No, Dom, I really think that we have reached the peak phone price. In fact, I think we're going to see everything trending down now. Maybe not for a couple of years, but I think everything's going to start trending down. People are going to realize that they can get really good phones for not $1,000. And then, everything will just start to because all the things that you list here in this comment, better camera, bigger battery, better screen, 120 hertz refresh rate, all that kind of stuff, all of that stuff, those were the things that would entice people to keep buying, right? But we've reached peak phone. Like, the difference between one phone 1 year to the next is not enough to justify a price hike. And once the market gets tired that way and the phones become more commoditized, each phone being pretty much the same thing, barring like one thing or the other, right? Then the price is naturally going to go down, because if you can't really discern a decided difference between a Samsung and a OnePlus and a Pixel, which at this point you still can, but once you can't, or at least the ways that you can aren't valuable enough to you, then you will start to see prices come down. I mean, it says a lot that Apple now has brand new phones priced anywhere from like $500 or $600 all the way up to $1,500, right? That speaks volumes when Apple used to only sell the most expensive phones, right? So that gives you a little bit of a window into where the market's going. Steven, when is the Xbox wireless headphones video coming? I don't have them yet. I need to get them. I am so backed up on all kinds of reviews. It's crazy. Opinions on the ROG phone. Let's see. Let me read this whole thing. ROG Phone 5. I feel like they're everything I want from the an LG V60 successor with more features and performance. I don't know. Does it have like the improved audio, the DAC, and the high quality and the blah blah blah? It looks really cool. All the ROG phones have always looked really cool, and I've always been kind of like, wow, I want a phone with an external cooler, but I've never used one yet. So yeah. Oh, we got DePoet's in the house. Where's DePoet? Oh, there he is. Good. The gang's all here. Dom, $5 super chat. Painfully honest ASMR on OnlyFans. Yeah, I'll just talk really, really quietly about smartphones. Alex says that the ROG phone has the ESS Saber DAC, which would be awesome if you were listening to this with the ESS Saber DAC. You would be in heaven. How's that? Did I pass the audition? I don't have the right. This is a dynamic mic. I need the condenser mic. Moist, baby. Moist. This episode of Painfully Honest Live is brought to you by Moist. I don't care what's moist, as long as it's moist. And by Restream. Restream is the place where you can stream to all the places. Why stream when you can restream? No, honestly, people, I'm going to be real with you here. Restream, they're very, I like them a lot. And they said, we want to sponsor you. We want to make sure that you're doing your thing, and I want to make sure that they're getting what they need out of me. So if you're thinking about streaming, or if you just want to try it out for free, hit that link down in the description below. Let them know Painfully Honest Tech sent you. Retethered tech, can you trust? I don't know, man. I don't know. Purple Rain. Yeah, I love it. Love it. One of my favorite records. Orbit says you can restream and make people and their phones moist. Okay. Wow. I think we're getting into OnlyFans territory now, though, with all this moistness. I think if you restream to all the places, that's a guaranteed recipe for moist. Okay. Man, you're not getting any pics of my family. Do it. Everything wrong with Painfully Honest Tech. Do it, man. I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Bring the pain, Dom. But gentlemen, ladies, I'm getting tired. And it's been an hour and 49 minutes, not to mention the premiere of the new Can You Trust video. If you haven't watched the new Can You Trust video, please go and watch it after we get off this stream. Can you trust John Prosser? Really, really interested to see what you guys have to say about that. It's not Pornhub, it's PHT Hub, man. PHT Hub. Can Alex says that I should become the Belle Delphine of phone reviews. So what should I drip off of a phone and into a bottle to sell you? Because that's the way it's done, right? Tech Hub. Right? I don't know. It's really hard to like imitate drums. Anyway, you guys, thank you so much. This has been a boisterous discussion, if nothing else. Really appreciate you guys being here. It's been awesome. Oh, thank you. Denosis has dropped the link for the Can You Trust John Prosser there in the chat. Guys, go check that out. Once again, I really do appreciate it. Do check out Restream sponsor. It's super easy to use. And I really appreciate their support. Hopefully they can get some of yours because they support me. Anyway, once again, my name's Jason, sometimes known as James. Until the next time, I'm out.